You have to understand something. They didn't just dislike you. They didn't just disagree with you. They painted you as the villain. In the grand, sprawling narrative of their lives, in the story they tell themselves and anyone who will listen, you are the antagonist. You are the monster under the bed, the cause of their problems, the shadow that looms over their supposed light. They needed a villain to make themselves feel like the hero, and you were cast in the role without an audition. But here is the secret they will never admit. The story they wrote is a work of fiction, and the final chapter, authored by the universe itself, is about to be revealed. And in that final chapter, you get the happy ending. If you can feel the truth of this in your soul, if you recognize the role they forced you to play, comment 77 right now. This isn't just a comment, it is a spiritual declaration. It's a signal to the cosmos that you are officially rejecting their script and stepping into the divine destiny that has been waiting for you. Prepare yourself. We are about to tear their story apart, page by page, and reveal the magnificent truth of yours. Chapter 1: The Casting Call for a Monster. First, you must understand the genesis of their story. Villains are not born, they are manufactured out of necessity. No one goes looking for a monster unless they desperately need one to exist. So the first question isn't why you were cast as the villain, but why they needed a villain in the first place. The answer lies in the barren landscape of their own spirit. They looked inside themselves and found a void. They saw insecurity, a lack of purpose, a gnawing envy, and a terrifying mediocrity. A spirit in that state cannot handle the light of an authentic soul. Your existence was a mirror, and they were horrified by their own reflection. They live in a world of muted colors, of gray compromises and beige conformity, and you walked in radiating pure, unapologetic color. It hurt their eyes. It disrupted their bleak equilibrium. Their ego, that fragile and tyrannical inner ruler, activated its primary defense mechanism. It had to destroy the source of its discomfort. And that source was you. Their greatest fear was not you, it was their own irrelevance. A world where you could shine so brightly without their permission or participation was a world where they felt invisible. The villain role they assigned you was also a desperate attempt to make themselves a main character in your story, inserting themselves into your orbit through conflict because they knew they could never earn a place there through merit. Your quiet confidence was not quiet to them, it was a screaming indictment of their own self-doubt. Your inherent gifts were not blessings, they were a personal affront to their own lack of effort. Your integrity was not a virtue, it was a judgment on their own compromises. You didn't have to say a word. Your very frequency, the energy you radiated by simply being you, was a high-pitched sound they could not endure. Think of it like this: they were operating on an old, crackling AM radio frequency, broadcasting static and fear. You were broadcasting on a clear, high-fidelity FM frequency of truth and light. When your signal came near, it didn't just cause static in their broadcast, it threatened to override it completely, exposing how poor their own signal quality truly was. So they had to create a reason to discredit you. They had to invent a narrative that would allow them to dismiss the mirror you held up. They needed a scapegoat, a repository for all the darkness they refused to acknowledge within themselves. Your refusal to participate in their petty dramas, your ability to find joy in things they didn't understand, your passion for knowledge, your spiritual curiosity, all of these were terrifying anomalies to them. They were deviations from the norm they clung to for safety. Their world was built on a foundation of unspoken rules and conformity, and your very being was a declaration that those rules did not apply to you. This is why you were chosen for the role. It wasn't because of a flaw in you, it was because of a power in you. Small, insignificant people are ignored. They are footnotes in other people's stories. But you were destined to be a main character. Your light was so bright that it couldn't be ignored or dimmed. It had to be reframed as a destructive fire. They couldn't compete with your light, so they decided to call it darkness. They launched a smear campaign, a whisper network, a carefully curated portfolio of your crimes. This casting call wasn't about finding someone evil, it was about finding someone powerful enough that their demonization would seem justified. They needed a formidable villain to make their own role as the struggling hero seem plausible. They needed a Goliath to their David, a dragon to their knight. The problem was, you were never trying to fight them. You were just living. Their entire war was a one-sided projection. Congratulations. Your selection for this role was the first and most undeniable proof of your immense spiritual weight. They saw a giant and, instead of admitting they were small, they decided to call the giant a monster. They needed a problem to solve, and since their inner world was too terrifying to fix, they made you the problem instead. It was the ultimate act of spiritual cowardice. Chapter 2. The evidence they fabricated once the role was cast. They needed to build a case. A story requires scenes, dialogue, and evidence to be believable. And so, they became meticulous forgers, expert manipulators of reality. They took your truth and twisted it into unrecognizable shapes. This was not a passive misunderstanding, it was an active campaign of psychological warfare. Every good thing about you was put on trial and found guilty of a crime it never committed. They became forensic accountants of your life, but their books were cooked from the start. They weren't looking for truth, they were looking for anything that could be bent into the shape of a weapon. This was gaslighting on an industrial scale, designed not just to fool others but to make you question your own sanity. Your intelligence was reframed as being a know-it-all. Your passion for a subject was twisted into obsession. Your desire for deep, meaningful conversation was labeled too intense or overly dramatic, a clear sign that their own emotional depth was a shallow pond compared to your ocean. Your quest for truth was painted as you being argumentative or confrontational because truth was a light they could not bear. Do you remember when you chose silence over engaging in their drama? They didn't see that as wisdom or boundary setting. No, they took your silence and labeled it arrogance. They recorded it in their story as proof that you thought you were better than them. They painted your peace as a declaration of war. Your desire to be alone to recharge your energy was twisted into antisocial behavior and rejection. Remember your kindness? The times you offered a helping hand, gave a word of encouragement, or showed genuine compassion? In their script, your kindness was reframed as manipulation. They're only being nice to get something, they'd whisper to their audience. Your generosity was a Trojan horse, a deceptive gift hiding a secret, selfish agenda. They could not comprehend altruism, so they rewrote it as a sophisticated form of deceit. A gift you gave was a bribe. A compliment you offered was flattery with an ulterior motive. And your strength, your resilience, the very thing that got you through the fire that was your most unforgivable sin. They took your strength and called it aggression. Your boundaries were not seen as healthy acts of self-preservation, they were walls built to keep people out, proof of your cold and unfeeling nature. When you said no, you were not protecting your peace, you were being difficult and uncooperative. Your ability to stand on your own 2 feet was a threat to their need to control and possess. They needed you to be weak, to be dependent. When you refused, you became a tyrant in their tale. They meticulously documented every instance where you stood up for yourself and presented it as an act of villainy. They weaponized your past, taking vulnerabilities you may have once shared in a moment of trust and recasting them as proof of your instability. That struggle you overcame? In their story, it became evidence that you were damaged goods, a history they could always point to. That moment of doubt you confessed. It was now exhibit A in a case for your untrustworthiness, twisted to prove you were unreliable from the start. Your very tears, signs of a deep and feeling heart, were used as evidence of your instability. They took the sacred and made it profane. This entire file of fabricated evidence was a masterpiece of projection. Every accusation they leveled at you was a confession of their own character. This is a critical key you must understand. Their accusations were a direct, unfiltered broadcast from their own shadow self. They called you a manipulator because they were masters of the craft, constantly maneuvering people and situations to their own advantage. They called you arrogant because they were drowning in a sea of insecurity, desperately needing to believe they were superior. They called you aggressive because they were the ones waging a silent, insidious war against your spirit. They called you a liar because their entire existence was propped up by a scaffold of lies they told themselves and others. They had to create a file of fake evidence because they searched for real flaws and came up with empty hands. The lies they told about you were never really about you at all. They were a smokescreen to hide the truth about themselves. The more elaborate the lie, the greater the truth they were trying to conceal. It was a desperate attempt to distract the world and themselves from the gaping void within. Chapter 3: The audience that believed the lie. Perhaps the most painful part of this entire ordeal was the audience. It was the friends, the family, the colleagues, the people who stood by and watched the character assassination take place. Not only did they watch, but many of them bought tickets to the show. They applauded the performance. They believed the story. This betrayal can cut deeper than the antagonist's initial attack. You looked out into the crowd, hoping to see an ally, a friendly face, someone who knew your true character, and instead, you saw nodding heads and looks of judgment. You saw the people you trusted sharing glances, whispering, and subtly moving away from you. This pain is unique because it forces you to question not just your reality, but your past. You begin to wonder if their support was ever real, or if you were always just one convenient villain story away from being abandoned. This was a second, more insidious form of gaslighting, where the consensus of the group tries to override the truth of your own experience. You must understand this now: that audience was never your audience. They were not there for truth, they were there for entertainment. They were drawn to the low vibrational energy of drama, gossip, and conflict. It's the spiritual equivalent of junk food. It's cheap, it's easy to consume, and it offers a temporary hit of excitement, but it has zero nutritional value. It's easier to believe a simple, sensational story of a villain and a hero than it is to engage in the complex, nuanced work of discernment. They offered a simple narrative, a neat little package of blame that required no critical thinking. The audience consumed it because it was easy. The audience itself was composed of different factions. There were the active cronies, who gladly participated in spreading the lies because it gave them a sense of belonging and power. Then there were the cowardly bystanders, who knew on some level it was wrong, but valued their comfort and social safety more than they valued justice or your friendship. Their silence was a loud vote in favor of the lie. Finally, there were the willfully ignorant, who simply didn't want to know the truth because it would complicate their black and white view of the world. All of them failed the test of character that was presented to them. Their acceptance of the false narrative was not a reflection of your character, it was a reflection of theirs. They were spiritually lazy. They were followers, not leaders. They preferred the comfort of the crowd to the lonely and demanding path of truth. Standing up for you would have required courage. It would have meant risking their own social standing. It would have meant being cast out of the group. And for souls who derive their identity from group affiliation, that is a fate worse than death. Their cowardice was a spiritual allergy to the light of truth. It was simply too bright and too revealing for them to endure. So when they turned their backs on you, when they chose to believe the fabricated evidence, it was not a rejection. It was a divine filtration. The universe was using this painful situation to do for you what you might not have had the strength to do for yourself. It was clearing your energetic space. It was a controlled burn of your social circle, designed to clear out all the dead wood and underbrush that was secretly choking your growth. It was removing the weak links, the fair-weather friends, the souls who were not equipped to stand beside you in your true power. The pain of their departure was immense, but their absence was a prerequisite for your ascension. The stage had to be cleared of all the extras and naysayers before the true star of the show you could finally take center stage. Consider it a divine quarantine. You were being separated and isolated not for punishment, but for protection. Your spiritual immune system was being upgraded, and you couldn't be exposed to low vibrational pathogens during this critical process. God was not punishing you with isolation, He was protecting you in solitude, preparing you for a new, more discerning audience worthy of your presence. An audience that doesn't need a villain to feel good about themselves. An audience that recognizes light because they hold light within themselves. Chapter 4: The Plot Twist They Never Saw Coming. Every great story has a plot twist. It's the moment the narrative pivots, when everything the audience thought they knew is turned on its head. While your antagonists were busy directing, producing, and promoting their fictional masterpiece, a grander story was being written for you in indelible ink by a divine hand. They were so focused on their small, earthly stage that they were completely oblivious to the cosmic theater in which they were merely minor actors. They thought they were in control of the plot. They believed their actions had the intended effect of breaking you. That was their greatest miscalculation. They were playing checkers while the universe was playing a multi-dimensional game of chess, and every move they made against you was actually advancing you into a position of power. Every lie they told was a prayer for your elevation, they just didn't know how to word it correctly. The plot twist they never saw coming was this: every single attack they launched against you was being repurposed by the universe as a tool for your empowerment. This is the law of spiritual alchemy. The universe wastes nothing, especially not potent, directed energy. They thought they were burying you, but they were planting a seed. The dirt they threw on your name was the very soil from which your magnificent future would grow. The pressure they applied was not crushing you, it was turning you from a lump of carbon into a flawless diamond. The fire of their hatred was not consuming you, it was forging you in the heart of a celestial forge, burning away impurities and tempering your spirit into something unbreakable. The potent, negative energy they aimed at you was the most powerful fuel source imaginable for your transformation. It was high-octane fuel for your spiritual engine, provided free of charge by your enemies. They were your unwitting spiritual trainers, adding more weight to the bar, forcing you to develop muscles of character and faith you never knew you possessed. The isolation they engineered to break you? It became your sanctuary. It was a forced retreat, a sacred sabbatical. In the silence, you learned to hear the voice of God, the whispers of your own intuition, which had been drowned out by the noise of their world. You disconnected from their static and connected to your own divine guidance system. The pain they inflicted to weaken you? It became your training. It was a spiritual boot camp. It forged a resilience in you that is now unbreakable. It gave you a doctorate in identifying toxic energy, a master's degree in boundary setting, and a PhD in self-reliance. The betrayals that were meant to leave you cynical and broken-hearted? They taught you the profound and beautiful value of your own company. They forced you to become your own best friend, your own staunchest ally, your own unwavering source of validation. You learned that your own approval was the only one that ever truly mattered. They thought they were writing a tragedy, but they were unwittingly writing the origin story of a warrior. Every tear you cried watered the seeds of your destiny. Every lie they told was a stepping stone on your path upward, forcing you to climb higher to get above it. They saw you in your season of preparation and mistook it for your season of defeat. They celebrated what they perceived as your downfall, completely unaware that they were merely witnessing the intense, painful, and necessary process of your becoming. The plot twist wasn't just that you would survive. The plot twist was that their efforts to destroy you were the very catalyst for your glorious rebirth. They were holding the gasoline can, thinking they were going to burn you down, while the universe stood behind you with a match, ready to ignite you not into ash but into a beacon. A lighthouse whose beam would guide others out of the very darkness they tried to trap you in. Their greatest weapon against you became God's greatest tool for you. Chapter 5. Your power. The unredacted truth. For so long, your power was a redacted document. It was there, but it was blacked out, censored, hidden beneath the layers of the false narrative they created. They built a caricature, a two-dimensional villain, and tried to convince the world, and even you, that this was the real you. But a lie, no matter how skillfully constructed, can never permanently contain a cosmic truth. The ink of their lies is beginning to fade. It is cracking and peeling under the intense light of your evolution. And the unredacted, undeniable truth of your power is now bleeding through the page, bold and brilliant. It is time for you to read what has been hidden. It is time to reclaim the parts of yourself you were told were unacceptable. What is this power? It is the very essence they tried to demonize. It is the light they called a fire. It is the depth they called darkness. It is the integrity they called arrogance. It is the joy they called naive. Your power is your authenticity, raw and unfiltered. It is the unique frequency that you were born with, the one that so terrified them. It is your sovereign energy, your ability to generate your own light, validate your own existence, and regulate your own emotional state regardless of external circumstances. For a time, you may have tried to dim it, to shrink yourself to make them more comfortable. You may have even started to believe their version of you, internalizing the redactions. But that time is over. The pressure of their suppression has only served to turn your power into a diamond. It has been compressed, refined, and is now ready to emerge, harder and more brilliant than ever before, capable of cutting through any illusion. This power is now manifesting in your reality in tangible ways. It is the uncanny synchronicity that guides your steps, placing you in the right place at the right time. It is the sudden arrival of opportunities that seem to fall from the sky, perfectly aligned with the desires you barely dared to speak. It is the new people who enter your life, souls who see you, truly see you, and are drawn to the very light your old enemies tried to extinguish. These are members of your true soul family, and they recognize your frequency instantly, no explanation needed. This power is the peace that settles in your heart, a peace that is not dependent on anyone's approval or validation. It is a sovereign peace, born from the intimate knowledge of who you truly are in the eyes of the divine. It's the newfound clarity in your mind, the ability to see situations and people with an almost psychic discernment, instantly recognizing truth from deception. You can feel a lie in your body now. You can sense inauthenticity from a mile away. This is your refined spiritual senses coming online. You no longer see their behavior as a personal attack, but as a symptom of their own spiritual sickness, which allows you to view them with detachment and even pity, a state they never thought you could achieve. They feared this. This was their nightmare scenario all along. They didn't just fear your success, they feared your self-realization. Because once you fully grasp the unredacted truth of who you are, you become untouchable. Their opinions, their stories, their lies become like gnats buzzing around a lion. They are an annoyance, but they hold no real power to harm. An unawakened you was manageable, someone they could manipulate and control. A fully awakened you, comfortable in your own skin and plugged into your divine source, is a force of nature that threatens their entire fragile reality. Your self-love is the ultimate antidote to their poison. The villain they created was a fragile construct held together by their fear and lies. Your true self is an eternal force connected to all that is. And as you step into this power, you are not just healing yourself, you are single-handedly dismantling the entire foundation of their fictional world. Your thriving is the declassified document that exposes their entire operation as a fraud. Chapter 6: The Collapse of Their Narrative. A story built on lies has no structural integrity. It is a house of cards, beautiful and intricate from a distance, but doomed to collapse at the slightest breath of truth. And the winds of truth, powered by your spiritual ascension, are now blowing at gale force. The narrative they so carefully constructed is beginning to tremble. The foundation is cracking. The walls are groaning. They are in a state of sheer panic, desperately trying to patch the holes and reinforce the crumbling structure with more lies, but it's too late. The glue of deception has lost its adhesion. They are witnessing the beginning of the end of their own story, a story where they were the self-proclaimed hero. The collapse is happening on multiple fronts, a slow but irreversible demolition. First, the audience is growing restless and disillusioned. The drama that was once so entertaining is starting to feel stale, repetitive, and frankly, pathetic. People are beginning to see the inconsistencies in the story. They see you moving on, glowing up, living a life of peace and purpose, while your antagonist remains stuck in the same bitter loop, talking about the same old story. Why are they still so obsessed with this person? Some will wonder. Why is their happiness so dependent on this person's failure? The hero they presented is starting to look less like a victim and more like a bitter, obsessed narrator with a personal vendetta. Their credibility is eroding with every desperate attempt to keep the lie alive. Some former members of the audience may even reach out to you quietly to apologize, to admit they were wrong. Second, the boomerang of karma is returning to them with astonishing speed and precision. The universe operates on a system of perfect energetic balance, a cosmic mirror. The very energy they put into slandering you, the sleepless nights they spent plotting, the emotional poison they brewed, it is all coming home to roost. You will begin to hear whispers of their own lives falling into disarray. The chaos they tried to sow in your life is now blooming in their own backyard. The connections they severed for you are now being severed for them. The judgment they passed on you is now being passed on them by others. The web of lies they wove to trap you is now ensnaring them, causing confusion and mistrust in their own circles. Their reputation, which they tried to build by destroying yours, starts to crumble under the weight of their own negativity. They are being forced to live inside the very prison they built for you, a prison of isolation, paranoia, and constant bitterness. Their world shrinks as yours expands. This is not your revenge, this is the universe balancing the scales. It is the simple, elegant law of cause and effect playing out in high definition. You don't have to lift a finger, you just have to keep vibrating higher. The higher you vibrate, the more they are forced to confront the ugliness of their own low frequency. You will see them scrambling. They might double down on the lies, becoming louder, more frantic, more unhinged. They might try to launch a new smear campaign, hoping to regain control of the narrative, but the magic is gone. The spell is broken. Their words no longer carry the same weight. This is not a sign of their strength, it is the death rattle of their story. It is the final, desperate act of a director who knows the show is over and the audience is leaving the theater. Their panic is the ultimate validation of your victory. They see you thriving, completely unbothered by their existence. They see you at peace. They see you surrounded by light and authentic love, and it is driving them mad because it is the one ending they never wrote into their script, the one scenario they were certain they had prevented. The collapse of their narrative is the necessary demolition before the construction of your new reality can be completed. A cleared lot for your new palace. Chapter 7. The happy ending is your new beginning. Let us be clear about what this happy ending truly is. It is not the petty, vengeful fantasy they might imagine. It is not about you gloating over their downfall or seeking retribution. To even desire that would be to lower yourself back to their frequency. The universe's plan for you is so much grander, so much more elegant than that. Your happy ending is your complete and total liberation from their story. It is you walking off their dark, cramped stage, not even giving them a backward glance, and into the brilliant, expansive sunshine of your own divinely authored life. It is the final, definitive cutting of the energetic cord, dissolving it so completely that you forget it was ever there. The happy ending is your peace. It is waking up in the morning and not having their energy be the first thing on your mind. It is a quiet spirit, a calm heart, and a mind free from the need to defend, justify, or explain itself. It is the sublime indifference to their opinion, the ultimate sign that you have taken your power back completely. It is realizing that what they think of you is none of your business because you are too busy with the business of living your beautiful life. The happy ending is your success. It is you achieving the very things they said you never would, not to prove them wrong, but because it is your destiny. It is your career flourishing, your creativity unblocking, your relationships becoming healthier and more authentic. Your joy is the final, irrefutable evidence that their story was a lie. Your thriving is the last word, spoken not with your mouth, but with your life. More profoundly, your happy ending is your new beginning. This is not a finish line, it is a starting gate. The end of their story about you marks the official beginning of your true story, the one your soul came here to live. Everything you endured, the slander, the betrayal, the isolation, was a prerequisite, a fiery initiation into the life you were always meant to live. You have graduated with honors from the University of Adversity. You have been initiated. You now carry a wisdom and a strength that can only be earned in the trenches of spiritual warfare. You are now equipped for the magnitude of the blessings that are about to be poured into your life. The universe needed to know you could handle the pressure before it handed you your purpose. You needed the strength you built to carry the weight of the crown that is being placed upon your head. This crown is forged from every stone they threw at you, now transmuted into a jewel. This new beginning is about purpose. It is about using your newfound strength and wisdom to fulfill your divine assignment, whether that's creating art, building communities, healing others, or simply shining your light so brightly that you give others permission to do the same. This ending is the start of you finally living on mission. Their regret will be watching you from a painful distance. Their punishment is not something you inflict, it is something they choose every single, agonizing day. It is the eternal prison of their own bitterness, a front row seat to the glorious life they tried so desperately to prevent. They will see you loved authentically, celebrated genuinely, and operating in a level of grace and power they can only dream of. But by then, you won't even notice they are watching. You will be too busy living, too absorbed in your own glorious new beginning, too focused on the incredible horizon ahead. You will have forgiven them, not for their sake, but for yours, because forgiveness is the key that unlocks your own cage. You are the hero who was disguised as the villain, and this final act is your coronation. Welcome to the first day of the rest of your magnificent life. They tried to write you into a tragedy, casting you as the villain destined for a miserable end. They poured all their energy, their focus, and their dark creativity into crafting a narrative of your demise. They held meetings, sent texts, and whispered in corners, all in an effort to cement their fictional script into reality. But they made a fatal error, an error of cosmic proportions. They underestimated the author of your soul. They mistook a chapter of hardship for the entire book. They did not realize that while they were scribbling in their diary of lies, a divine power was penning an epic on your behalf, a story of triumph, resilience, and ultimate vindication. They were writing in pencil. God was writing in stone. The role they gave you is now obsolete. The costume no longer fits. The story they told is now a forgotten manuscript, gathering dust in the archives of irrelevance, a testament to their own spiritual bankruptcy. Their campaign failed. Their projections returned to sender with interest. Their audience has dispersed, looking for new drama to consume, leaving the antagonist alone on their empty stage. And you stand vindicated. Not by arguing or fighting or explaining, but by enduring, by trusting, by outlasting the lie with the sheer, unyielding force of your truth. Your victory was not won in a battle of words, but in the quiet, steadfast resilience of your spirit. You were never the villain. You were the protagonist undergoing the most critical part of the hero's journey. Their story about you is over. Your story, the true one, is just hitting its stride, and the universe is giving it a standing ovation. Step into the light. The happy ending is here, and it looks truly magnificent on you. If you are ready to step into your happy ending, comment 77 to anchor this victory in your reality and declare to the universe that you are done with their story. Like this message if it resonated deep within your spirit. Share it with another chosen one who has been miscast as the villain and needs to be reminded of their coming vindication. And subscribe to become part of this movement, this community of sovereign souls who are taking back their power and rewriting their own stories.